In addition to being an anthropologist, I studied religion in university, and I was always fascinated by the way the prophets were able to move the word around the world. Imagine these kind of unassuming, disruptive communicators who were bringing a message that was about to change everything. In my mind, they're the greatest viral marketers ever. What do I mean by that? I mean that viral marketers are those individuals who are able to get other people to tell your story for you. I'll say that again. The greatest storytellers are those people who are able to get others to carry the message for them long after they're dead, long after their time, their culture, their politics has created the context where the message originally arose. And look at what they had to confront. Look at the hierarchies, class, race, all of those kinds of barriers to getting the message across. And they did it sometimes with just 12 apostles following after them. So I want to give you these 5 eternal rules of storytelling that you can begin to apply to the employee engagement and the employee retention model. So these 5 core elements start with the history. You'll notice that all of the prophets held on to the history that they came from, their core values, their shared experiences, those anchored where these storytellers placed their story and created it. Whether it's the 10 Commandments, Adam and Eve, those calendar events that shape our lives, that's how you ground a story. The prophets themselves are authentic leaders. You can't be a prophet and a hypocrite. It's time to ask ourselves about our own corporate leaders. Are they living that stature of a real prophet to carry the corporate message? And certainly the values. What are those core values that everyone in the organization shares, and are they truly being lived out day to day in the organization? And the message. You'll notice the greatest thing that these prophets did was speak in the language of the audience. They spoke in parables. They spoke in ways that the audience could take the story, make it their own, and bring it back to people in far-flung corners of the earth. And finally, the early adopters. That small group of people who believe in a vision far beyond what seems possible right now. That core group of individuals probably lives in your organization as well. So let's take a look at how we make this happen and why it works. We know for a fact that storytelling is how human beings learn. It's the way our grandfathers and our mothers have been whispering knowledge in our ear forever. And Stanford winds up confirming this fact for us when we know that stories are 22 times more memorable than simply giving statistics. In fact, Stanford students were asked, after hearing 5 minutes of statistics and stories, only 5% could remember the statistics, 63% remembered the story. What good is talking about your employer brand if no one can remember what you're talking about? So, we know this is exceptionally true among the millennials, which is soon to become the largest group of individuals working in our companies today. We know that stories shared by peers, by people, matter more than all other forms of media. It's more influential on purchases, it's more trusted, and it's more memorable. That's why we need to use it. Unfortunately, many corporations are failing the authenticity test, are failing in the discussion of these messages and our values because employees aren't feeling it when they go to work each day. Let's get a little deeper on some of this research. I was so excited to see that a Harvard Business Review story came out just last week that confirmed a lot of this research. And basically it's telling us that inauthentic workplaces are what is driving disengagement in the workplace. So if only 19% feel strongly that their workplace is authentic, it means that people are dropping out. It means they're leaving. When an employee goes to a career site, or they look on social media, or they see, they have a conversation with a recruiter who tries to tell them about the incredible new workplace that they're going to find, and then they get there only to see that what they were promised doesn't fulfill on that promise, the employee becomes disengaged. Imagine going to work for an employer who tells you that they're innovative, but every time you bring up a new idea, it's dismissed. Imagine going to work for an employer who's all about advancement within the company, and yet 6 months in, you see every new position open is filled by an outside hire. What is the promise that we're making to our recruits and our current employees? So as companies are forming their kind of best place to work narrative, you have to realize that if the authentic story going on inside isn't matching what you're promising outside, you create the perfect storm for employees to leave. And that's what has to stop. I want to walk you through a couple of brands that are really doing this well. I'm incredibly impressed by Patagonia, the outdoor apparel retailer. This is a company that prides itself on two great loves of nature and protecting the environment. That is their corporate brand to the outside world. As an employer brand, they say they're an incredible mix of work, play, family, fun, and environmentalism. And you know what? They back it up. Did you know if you go to work for Patagonia, you can get paid to take time off at a paid internship by the company? You can get paid to commute any other way to work except driving a car. You can get paid for civil disobedience classes to learn how to protest on behalf of Mother Nature. And if, by the way, if the waves are cresting just perfectly, you can even sneak out to go surfing, no questions asked. That is what an employer puts their money where their mouth is and said, we believe in the environment, we believe in you. And it's completely paying off for Patagonia. Imagine now how the employee and the human has no separation any longer. In fact, the ideal is to feel the same at home as you do at work, as comfortable. No masks, no pretension, no pseudo-professionalism. Imagine one of your employees saying this about where you work. Patagonia's culture and my own culture feel inseparable. In fact, I often struggle with drawing a line between my personal life and the company's identity. Wow. Can you imagine feeling so inextricably drawn to the place that you work that you can't feel a distinction anymore? If you're thinking only consumer brands know how to do this right, and it's really easy to put on a great Patagonia jacket and go to work, let's take a look at what Cisco is doing. In 2015, Cisco made a really critical business decision to put their employees at the center of their employer brand. It was a bold and a brave move by a woman named Carmen Collins, who said, I want to put the employee voice as the center of what we speak about Cisco. She decided to turn over the Snapchat account to their employees. Imagine now a 600% increase in Snapchat followers at Cisco. That employee voice is front and center. It's displayed exactly as they are. Nothing constructed, nothing scripted. And we know that employee-generated content works. For Cisco, these Life at Cisco blogs, I strongly advise you to check them out. Life at Cisco. You'll notice now are the second most popular blogs out of Cisco's 50 blog universe, right? Their Twitter following in just 6 months has increased by 400%, and 2,000 new Instagrams week over week, 2,000 new Instagram followers, week after week, are now driving tons of traffic to their recruiter site. It's that authentic voice that is attracting new recruits and re-energizing employees that currently work at Cisco. You'll also notice that it's even more critical now that we are in the beginnings of a labor crunch. Unemployment is at its lowest in the United States. Employees are more disengaged than ever. In the United States, 2/3 of employees say they are disengaged at work, and more than half of them are actively looking for a new job while sitting at their desks. So in an era where only 12% of employees actually believe the corporate line that they're hearing on social media and in the news and from recruiting stations, it is time to let employees do the talking. So I want to give you a couple of suggestions of how you can begin to execute this in your own businesses. First, it's really important to mind the gap, to find out where the holes are between your authentic brand and what you aspire to be, and maybe some of the white lies that we're telling to prospective employees. So don't be afraid to start asking questions. It's time to run assessments with your current employees to figure out exactly what they're hearing and what's working. It's time to be really active social listeners and find out what our employees are actively saying. How many of you have taken a walk to Glassdoor and see what some of your fellow coworkers are saying about your workplace? Is it really authentic? Is it the rating that you wished you'd had? So consider those assessments, and also remember, this is your insurance policy against bad reputational breaks and backlash that you might get from employees. And don't forget to ask them what's working as well, because you want to capitalize on those things that are really fantastic and exploit them. Let employees talk about those wonderful things. It's time to be real, but don't forget to aspire to greatness still. What does that mean? It means that if we only talk about table stakes, our great wages and our great benefits and so forth, we're only talking about half of who we are. That part of who we aspire to be needs to be front and center too. We just need to be honest about where we are in the process. So I'll take you back again to these 5 eternal rules of storytelling. How can we incorporate this and give employees a guide to begin sharing what they know? Number 1, make your history really public. If you're a young startup, what is the founder's story? If you're an old company like Johnson & Johnson, you have the family credo around since 1943. They still live by it. All the employees know it. If you're a prophet, if you're the leader in your business, ask yourself, are you really living up to the values that you expose every day? Are you living that mission statement that lives next to the elevator when you walk in each day? Are you really being true to your employees and what they expect of you? As for the as for the values, make them clear. If you're a company like Zappos, maybe you want a little weird and wacky in your workplace. Let people be themselves. Let their core values come to light. Ask employees what they are so you can meld them with the values of your business. And for the early adopters, it's really time to pass the mic. It's time to pass the megaphone to the employees and let them do the talking. Because like it or not, 50% of employees, if they love your company, are actively posting about it already. And that's attracting the best kind of employee possible, referrals from enthusiastic enthusiastic employees. If they're not loving it, 35% are still posting about it, but it's not pretty. So give employees the guide of how to post well, give them the benchmarks, and let them be themselves. But it's time to pass the mic to the employees and watch how the message moves your business forward. Thank you so much.